All right, so we're going to start modeling a phone stand. And as I said, what you want to do is you want to have something of actual dimensional size. Now, I'm fine with downloading a basic model to work from. Like for mine, I have a case around mine. But to give myself some dimensions to play with and such, I downloaded a model from Thingiverse. And how to get that in, you can upload as standard, but I don't want to do that because especially with STLs, and this is why the whole new format of 3MFs and using object files, OBJs versus an STL. STL files do not retain information like scale. So often enough, when you import into Fusion an STL using the actual import function, it throws the scale off big time. So what you should do is instead go to Insert. So just like you would for Canvas, instead, we're going to go to Insert Mesh. Now, mesh is just a more complex form made up of polygons rather than the direct solid format we've been working with. So going to Downloads. Uh-oh, where did it go? That's problematic. That should be there. Okay, a moment. All right, so the issue was it was a zip file. Okay, well, so you go to Insert, Meshes, and I downloaded a file or some files of a iPhone. So it's got a whole bunch of different options here. I just want just the main body. So I open this up. Now, this is just like for a canvas. You can now place this. It's going to default to putting it right smack in the middle of the digital build, unless in this case it's a little bit warped. So in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just rotate it into position. So 90 degrees over. That is not 90 degrees. Get that down, and then I could bring this down to the build plane. And I can, of course, always move this later, which I will, just to speed this along. All right. So outright, this has created a component or a element inside the new bodies. New body, main body, phone. Great. Let me zip over. What I want to do now is I just want to place this more or less in the center here because it helps me build this out. So select the object, move. Just going to bring this down to roughly the center, or better yet, there we go. So all I did was I just moved the phone model flush with the construction plane. Super good. That's where I want that. Great. Okay. So now I at least have some actual dimensions to work from. And to double check that, use the inspect tool. And now this does get a little bit tricky because this is a mesh, but I can select just some point on the outside and some point over there, 70 millimeters. I can use my calipers to hopefully check that it is roughly there. Yeah, that looks about right. Again, I'm working inside of a case, so there we go. Okay, so it is actually properly to scale. Awesome. Okay, but what I want is, this is just a bare phone. I need a case around it. So I'm going to start to model that. First, I'm going to start a new component. So rather than doing anything else, so start a new component. Now, yes, it can build a component off of something, but for right now, I don't need to actually reference anything. New component, great. I'll go ahead and title it now. Phone case. Hooray. The original object ghosts out, and now I'm seeing that it wasn't actually centered. So that is going to cause problems because that just makes it difficult to work. So let me go back up, reactivate the whole thing, select, and move this more of into position. That looks significantly better. Okay. Back down to phone case now to reactivate that actual component. Cool. Okay. Start a sketch right there. As I've said before, a few things I like doing is just building first a construction plane sketch. So I'm going to start a 2-point rectangle. Even if this isn't exactly correct, I can always manipulate it later. But let's go about to there and there. Great. Okay. Double select, hit X, construction plane. Great. Give myself a couple of diagonals just so that way I can actually see what I'm doing. Forgot to change that over. Great. Another line and line. Loop. Great. All right, finish sketch. I just wanted to start a sketch with those basic parts. As I said, you do not have to work this way. I just like working this way to give myself a reference point. All right. So from here, now I can start from a center point rectangle, which is just something I prefer working with. Not quite centered, but that's all right. Again, I'll modify these dimensions later. All right. That'll work from there. There's my general reference. Now, how big is my actual case? Outside, using my calipers, about 80 millimeters wide by about 150, 155. Okay. So start another one. Now I can do this numerically, 80 wide, 155 tall. Great. So this will become the basis of my actual case. From here, this is just a really basic frame, and what I can do now, actually, I'm going to delete that other one. There we go. Don't need that at all. Finish sketch. I just need that one thing there that I can start building from. Now I can actually extrude that. It's 11.3 millimeters. So hit E for the extrude tool. That 11.3. Great. I can start adding my fillets. Now, one thing I want to do, I didn't add a fillet to the original box. What I can do here is, or rather the original rectangle, what I can do here is actually put fillets on the extruded form itself. And I'm going to drag them down. See what I got going there, roughly top. It's hard to gauge. So that is a 9. And this is where it's handy to now like have the main bot have that original showing through. And unfortunately with the whole ghosting aspect, it's hiding it. So that's less than helpful. But let's say 15 millimeters, that seems roughly correct. Cool. Okay. So my phone case has rounded edges as well. So we'll do another fillet. Now, top and bottom. Let's see, 1 millimeter, round that out a little bit. So now I'm effectively making like a soap bar. Sure. Hooray. As I said, you can do sketches on a plane here, or rather on a surface. So rather than selecting any plane from the origin point, I'm going to select the surface here. This will be the top of my phone, or my phone case rather. And again, the reason we're doing this is that way you have accurate measurements of what you're working with. So the internal here for the screen is it's like 72 by 144. 72.1 by 144. Is that accurate? Ish. Let's say 142. Good enough. And again, I want to add fillets. Now, one thing we have not discussed yet is how you can link fillets together. So first thing, I'm going to just fillet this one corner of the sketch. 18 was a bit much. Let's do 10. That's a little closer. More like 15. Why not just match them up? Okay. So what you can do, instead of having to individually add fillets and keep selecting the appropriate dimension, if you mouse over where it says your radius, R15, what appears is D11 colon 15 millimeters. The D11 is because fillets are created off of a circle in there. So what you're seeing is the diameter of that. So D11, cool, okay, keep that in mind. Repeat fillet over here. Instead of entering this numerically, if I keep the same code, lowercase d11, that will reference the original fillet. Keep doing that going around. You still have to, unfortunately, still have to enter these in individually. B11, repeat fillet, B11. Cool. But now, if I decided, you know what, actually 15 is not right, it needs to be 16. I can select just the original, type in 16. Now that references every single one. So you can adjust for all of that. Just a simple workflow adjustment helps out. Finish sketch, and I did that just because there is a slight indentation here. So we'll say -1 millimeter. Okay. All right. So I don't need to measure, I don't need to bring in every single detail here. However, things that I do need to make sure to note are things like buttons and things, because these are elements that can interfere if you're making some kind of a case, some kind of a holder, something like that. You still want to be able to access buttons and such. All right. So first off, there's the big side button. Now, again, this does get really confusing to not be able to see as clearly the original object. So what I'm going to do, let's play with some of the settings. Visual style, let's switch to hidden edges. That's just on the one. Let's switch to wireframe of hidden. So you'll be able to see things a little more clearly at the same time it's a little more complex. If that's going. But now I can at least see what's going on inside. Could we close the door, please? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So main things I want to make sure to note are the button, camera bump, that sort. If it's important, the charger cable port as well. All right. So let's go ahead and do that stuff. This, of course, makes it a little more confusing to see what I'm doing. So now that I've at least gotten a better idea of where I'm working, let's see here. I want to start another sketch, reactivate just the component I'm working on. And I want to work on the bottom there. All right, great. Now I can actually see what I'm doing. I've selected that plane. Yes, I'm working on that spot. Come on. There we go. All right. So I'm going to try to mimic that plane or that circle there. However, I don't necessarily have to model every bit of that. What you can use is the project tool. And what that is using basically in the sense of, all right, a projector can project lines and everything and all that sketch, you know, obviously whatever the hell it's projecting onto a screen, kind of sort of the same concept. You can pull elements of a sketch, a body, a component from one and project those lines onto another. So let's see what I got here. I'm going to try, what you do is you just press P. That brings up the project. Geometry, I want to try, I don't know if it's going to let me because it is a complex form here. I want to select that. Yeah, it's not going to let me do that at all. Okay, unfortunately, that's not going to let me do that. I'll show you how to do that on another component of this, or another element of this project here. Okay, so in this case, yeah, I got to draw some circles. All right, so I want to, instead, because I'm not certain where the center is, let's draw some 2-point circles. I know that it's definitely starting at the bottom here. And I'll try to snap to there, and then I can just expand upwards until I get roughly the size there. Boop, 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 boop. Great. So it's almost 11. I can use 11 there. So I'm going to change that dimension there of that circle. Come on. There we go. Just change it to an even 11. That works. Now I can at least start another center circle here. Tell you what, let's just draw a construction line straight up from that center. Somewhere-ish, that's just a reference for me. And we'll do that at 11. Great, I didn't mean to leave that as a construction. Select X, changes that. Select the center, move, get that more or less where it needs to be. Now, One of the issues you sometimes run into, the increments are currently set on this drawing at anytime you move something, it's at a full millimeter. Well, my movement or where it needs to be is somewhere between. This is where you'd want to put in partials. So it's going negative because it's moving upwards in relation. So that needs to be a negative 0.5. There we go. Put it right where I want it to be. All right, at this point, now I can hide that original. And I'm just going to draw some lines between here. Same and same. All right, one thing that comes up here, you saw the second lines. Poop, that was not supposed to be a construction line. Change those back out. There we go. My constraint functions came up here. That's exactly what I want. This little line with a circle on it, that's your constraint of tangent. That's showing at the second point of those circles, but I want that to be at the first as well. So I select tangent, select the line, select circle, and it completely screwed up my drawing. What just happened? It might not have needed it because it may well have already been attached into that. Yeah, it looks like that's already tangent onto there. That's fine. Right there, so there. There we go. All right. Same circle, line. That just snaps the lines exactly to the tangent of that circle. Super good. All right. Now this is just gonna be my reference point. I need that to be slightly larger. So my bump out is, yeah, let's make those a little bit larger. Now I can use the offset tool to select the outside. Stop making it construction lines. I need multiples, so cancel. All right, so I'm gonna have to trim that off first. It won't let me select just the little bits. So I'm gonna select, now I've trimmed all that excess off. Now I can use the offset to the whole thing. Great. I know that my diameter of these circles for the actual camera thing, or for the actual camera bump, is 11 millimeters. And I measure it out with my calipers on my case. It's roughly 12. Great. So that means a 1 millimeter add-on. Great. Finish sketch. Now, just to make it so I can actually see what I'm doing again, go back to visual style, hidden edges, or now I can extrude. I want that outer one as well as the inner one. That's fine. And the bump out is roughly, looks like 2 millimeters. Great. My operation automatically switched to join. Super good. All righty. Now I do want to unhide that last sketch because now I'm going to show you how to use project here. So I want to make that little indent here. Create a sketch right there. And instead of drawing that forward or drawing it again or bringing that forward, I can use the project tool. So I press P, project, because I'm working on this little bump out plane. I select that inner drawing. See if I can get at it. I want the whole thing. So double click on there. And now you can see faintly, just because of the color, let me change the color and you can see more clearly. Now in purple, that construction line has been brought forward to my current work plane. Great. Now, so I didn't have to redraw that. I could just bring one sketch forward to where I want to work now. Cool. That's all I needed. Finish sketch, extrude that, and we'll go negative 0.5 just for that little teeny recess. This level of detail is not necessary, merely a good place to show you how to use some of the different tools. And again, on my case, this isn't just a straight thing. It actually has a good bevel to that, so I'll use the chamfer tool. And I can use a chamfer right there, and a chamfer as opposed to a fillet. Fillet is round, chamfer is a angle. With that tool, what I can do is use the slider and bring this out. That just trimmed everything to a good even bevel there. It's not the ideal tool to use, but it is, in this case, a quick fix for what I'm trying to do. Cool. Okay. So you're starting to get the idea of how you can use some of the different stuff. Add buttons onto here. Again, good place to use references for making like the buttons there. Again, this is not completely centered, so I do want to do that. But this is basically the kind of thing that you want to be doing. You're trying to add in some of the features so that you can actually know where you're working. Okay. The next step would be actually figuring out just what you want to do. So if you're still at odds with that, and obviously it's not like expected to be doing this here in class right now, but just in doing a walkthrough. So let me discuss what we're going to do. I'll pause here for a moment. So I got my idea down. I'm going to do a basic thing here. However, before we go any farther, I did the one thing that you're not supposed to do for anything. Make sure you save your file before you get too far. Something happens. At this point, it's saving it, Fusion is saving it to a temporary spot, but it might not be properly recoverable because it's not properly saved. So always make sure to start by saving your project. Easy peasy, just make sure you get that done. Okay. So I have my reference points. I can zoom out here, switch back, shift in to multicolor. That thing, the model is nested inside of there, not perfectly, but that's okay, because for my real needs, I just needed to model the case, but I wanted to have the internal there just to give myself the dimensions so I know a rough idea what I'm doing. So what I want to do is just make a basic kind of sort of model or a stand for this. But like I said, I want to try to incorporate this charging pad. So I'll make some sort of a basic stand. I want to have a slot where I can drop the phone into, but I want to have this be able to nest into it. So with that, I've got my general reference, and now I can say, okay, I got an idea of where I want to build this, how big it needs to be, that sort. All right. So to start a new component, make sure, remember to go all the way to the top, activate everything. New component, otherwise it'll accidentally nest it within the component I was already working on. So from there, great. Ghosts out, super duper. Now for this, I think I'm just going to start with just a pre-made form. So create, we'll go to box, cool. Now this sometimes happens, I can't actually get to the actual origin plane. So from there, just go and hide the whatever body is in the way, select that, now I can unhide, and I can see what the heck I'm doing there. All right, starting point. We'll make this roughly, if the case itself is 80 millimeters wide, yeah, let's make that 200 wide, and then the other dimension, sure, 100, why not? That'll be a good starting point. Depth wise, I want to make sure about excuse me, a good chunk of this phone is down inside of it, so 50 seems reasonable. So let's make sure that's about 60 millimeters high. Okay, cool. Just a basic starting point. From here, now I can see, all right, where do I really want to start putting things? So what I'm going to do is actually move my phone case into position. So I'm going to leave that box where it is now, reactivate everything, or rather go and activate phone case. I'm going to use the move tool to select just that phone case body, and I'm going to move this into position. Use the orbit tool to bring it up to 75 degrees. That seems a bit steep, but sure, that works for now. I can place this roughly, we'll do less in the middle, more of maybe to the side. Sure. I can always move this around a little bit more here in a moment. We'll put that roughly there-ish. That seems about right. And I want to make sure that it's floating not at the bottom, but somewhere above. Sure, 10 millimeters. That seems about right. So sort of kind of ish, right about there. Cool. Hit OK. All right. Now that just kind of gives me an idea of where I want that phone case to be. Go back, reactivate the phone stand itself. This is what I'm working with. Okay. So first up, I want to make sure to actually cut out the space for this. Start a sketch on the actual top of there. Work from the top. This gets a little wonky sometimes. So, whoop, lost where I was. So this is where being able to work from multiple views sometimes is helpful. So working from the right, the actual right, not part of the right. Let's start a line, and I want that to be really right where those intersect. Let's start about right there. And it needs to be at least, let's see, the thing is 12 millimeters deep. So let's make that 15. That ought to be a good amount. Super good. Again, something larger. The actual thing is 80, so let's make it 85. Cool. So again, this gets really confusing sometimes when you have multiple things going. This is where it'd be a good idea to just go ahead and hide the phone case, that sort, so that you're not interacting with. Now you'll see a projection line appeared here. Like, where did that come from? That's because that my starting point line, I actually had selected the side of the other component. So it automatically drew that line in into the sketch just through its own projection, so that you can know where that reference line is going to. Just a way that Fusion tries to help out, and assuming that you want to keep a reference point to that. So I said that needs to be, I already forgot what I was saying, 85, super good. Degrees, 0, 85, whoop, cool, okay. Finish out the square, or better yet, I'll just go ahead and do a square using that. 85 and what did I say, 15? Yeah, cool, okay. All righty. Now the issue with this is, ideally, I would just want to extrude this down. If I hit finish, extrude, what happened there? Oh, accidentally. Sorry, accidentally left that as a construction line. Select that again. There we are. Okay. Don't know why I did that. It keeps automatically switching that back to a construction line. No. What is happening here? Why is that? All right. Well, that's interesting. Even though it is not a construction line, it keeps translating it into one. No idea why. That is a interesting thing. Anyhow, what I would actually want to do with this is, since I know the size of this, what I want to try to figure out is, if I use an extrude, it's just going to go straight down into the form. So how to work from that is, I could try to rotate the sketch, and I'm going to try and do that in a moment. The other option is creating a construction plane. And what a construction plane is it's basically what the origins already are. Let me hide what I'm working on here. Your standard origin planes here, which are ghosted out because I'm not selected, or it's because I don't have the full situation selected. These are your starting origin work planes. I can create an offset plane or construction plane away from these at different angles. It's just an easier way to create sketches, things like that, build elements off of these standard world sets. So let me go back to my phone stand here. And how to do that is I'm going to select on construct. It's the very top one. You can work plane at an angle, all these sort of things, but construction plane just allows you to play around with stuff. So if I just do a construction plane, I can select one of the regular planes and pull upwards, and this would allow me to draw elements off of here. Now, what I'm actually going to need to do is at an angle, but just to show you what you can do. So if I wanted to draw something up above, this is exactly where this would come into play. So now anything I work, now I can select this plane instead of the original or this sketch and build anything on the same level as this, as the top of my box, without having to select the box every time. So that's a convenient way of working. The other one, like I said, is this one is plane at an angle, creates a construction plane through axes, sort of that sort. All right. So what I can do here is I'm selecting plane at an angle, and it lets me select that projected line. Now I can create a sketch already on the profile of that line I just created. So this is a really convenient way of, if you need to make something like this, like elements added already built at an angle, you just have that sketch line, or in this case, projected line, and it can automatically create a construction plane off of that. Or if you need to adjust the angle from there, there you are. Hit OK. Now what I can do is I can create a sketch on that diagonal plane. So this is off of our standard XYZ coordinates. It still uses XYZ coordinates. It's just on a angled plane. So now I can build sketches, build my elements. And this is what I'm going to end up using to create my backsplash that actually holds the phone in place. So what I'm going to do here, this is my starting point. Problem is that works there, but we can adjust from that. So what I need is, I'll start a 2-point plane, or a 2-point box here. Use that original spot there. I want it to be 85 wide, because that's how wide the thing is. And I want to actually have this disc nested into that. So I got to make sure I measure that. I'm going to have to actually expand this because this disc is wider than that base, but that's okay for now. So it is 100 millimeters wide. I'm going to want this to kind of nest right in the center. So let's start by, I'll just make it 50 tall, because the rest is going to be nested down inside. Okay, great. From here, now this is of course building way out in front. That's problematic. Not sure why it's way out in front there. Oh, because it's, even though I'm on a plane, I used that as my start point. That's okay. I hit finish. I'm going to extrude that form. I want it to go backwards. Now see, it's already building it at that angle. Now, what I don't want is cut all that. I want this to actually be a join. However, I want this to actually start not where it's starting. I want it to start offset from there. So you have these options here. We haven't used these yet. Start plane. Profile plane is where you're already working from. You can work from an object, which I don't have an object there yet, so I can't do that. Here I can use offset, and you can just literally offset it an amount. So this is still actually extrude. This is still the actual extrusion distance. So let's make that. Oh, needs to be thick enough. This is 10, so let's make it 15. Cool. Negative 15. I wanted to go the other way. Now the offset, however, this is 85. So let's start with 85. Way too far. Let's say negative 10. So this is just 10 millimeters away from that sketch plane, just because I accidentally started with the front of that sketch there. So this was originally 15, so let's add 15 to that, so negative 25. There we go. Is that right? Yeah, that's good. So that's right on my line there. I see what the problem is now for the other, why it created a, why it was automatically creating a construction line is, for some reason I accidentally selected that line, or when I selected that line, it's actually below the work plane I was working at. So I'll have to adjust for that. That's okay. But now creating that construction plane has allowed me to extrude at the angle that construction plane is. Basically, I'm just working from different spots. That's all. So if you start with one part, like the brick of the actual stand, and then I create a construction plane at an angle, I'm just drawing on that one now and going in that direction. So cool. Join. That makes for a nice little brick there. Great. Same thing I can do here. I can build off of this stuff again. I'm not sure what happened to that sketch there. That one, So what I can do there, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and hide that. I'll deal with that one later. Not really a big deal. If I select it, grab it, it highlights which one it is for me. Hide that. I don't like that anymore. You go away. All right. Now at least I can figure out what I was doing there problematically. Excuse me. Sketch right to there. 15, it was 85 and 15, super good, super good. Nope, not 16, 15. There we go, great. That was a problem. And like I said, if I had extruded down directly, this is what I was talking about, is it's going to not line up with that stuff. So I'm gonna have to actually create a sketch moving this downward here, but based off of that angle plane. So I'm just cancel that. That's not what I want to do right now. So that's okay. So those are ways you can actually start working with multiple planes and start building like angled parts, that sort. All right. How can I work into these surfaces? I want to have this angle down here. That would be great. Again, I needed to actually have this angle plane. So start another construction plane. It's not what I want. I want the, stop it. I'm trying to get that one. Plane at angle. Again, I want to be working off of, let's see if it'll let me actually do this. Nope. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to select that angle and it's going to create a construction plane there. This is not the way, by the way, the progression of steps I ended up going is not the best way to do that. I would have created this plane first, simply because it would have been easier, but I got lost because of where that line was and I only just saw where it was. So I can build a construction plane off of an existing line, but how I would have done that instead is, this is where that opening was going to be. I would have created a sketch on the side here. Let me just go to the right. This is at a 75-degree angle. So I would have created a line. And I'll just use a construction line here, starting at that point and going out 15 degrees because that's the adjacent net. And we'll just go, yeah, oops, not 15 millimeters. Let's do 20 just to there. I needed 15. Going that way. Cool. All right. So this would have been the ideal way that I should have done this. And like I said, I just got confused as to where I was working there. All right, finish sketch. Just that simple line there. Now I can create that sketch, that plane at an angle. Select that line. There we go. That's really where I wanted to be working. Just that simple line there. Because now I can start building anything off of that already preset angle. All right. So again, create sketch. Oh my God, the forever creating sketch. Now I can actually access that plane. Don't work at just the top, because now I'm working at that section or working from an angle. It's going to throw you off really badly. So I can still start from that. Again, I'm still working on this plane, selecting that point, going off. That one's 15. That one's 85. There we go. See how now that sketch actually created properly on that angle already? That's exactly what I wanted to have done. Okay. Sorry for the roundabout solution there. To there. Now I can just extrude downward and I get my actual cutout. So one of the other things you can do is, all right, I'm doing cutouts. I assume I want this to be such and such deep. Great. Okay, let's say I want this to be negative 55 millimeters deep. However, maybe I might decide that what I want is to change the actual dimensions of my base block later down the road. So what you can do, instead of just doing this numerically, you can basically use a similar tool like the offset line tool in a sketch. You can do a offset extent. So what this means is your extent type here, this is telling you that whatever your extrusion is, it's by so and so many your unit measurement here, millimeters. So it'd be 55 millimeters. However, I can select to object. And what this will allow me to do, I'm going to select the bottom of my build here. And now I'm going to select an offset of, let's say 5. Nope, -5, because I want to go the opposite way. Now, what you've done here is assigned a parametric value. What a parametric value is something that will be dependent on other dimensions. Basically, a kind of a similar aspect of like when I showed you how to link or how to reference fillets on your sketch, sort of kind of here. So if down the road, I actually go back into the construction of this box here and change the height, it will always be within 5 millimeter, or it will always be, that hole will always be 5 millimeters from the floor. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll let that stay as a cut, super good. So now I have that angled cut down there, great. So say, or I can inspect here, measure if it'll actually let me because I can't get at it. Come on. It's not letting me select anything in there. Yep, I want just down in there. Come on. What is it selecting? Nah, it's not actually catching, letting me catch the thing. All right, anyway. So you can see how far away that is from the base. If I go back to the original construction of that, edit feature, 60 millimeters tall, let's change that to 50. Shrink it. Okay, gonna cause problems there, but you'll have to change. But now that extrusion still is 5 millimeters from the floor. So really simple way of adding some values without actually having to make that change. And now that has completely changed everything because of those sketches were based on the top of that box. So I'm going to undo that. There we go. All right. That's just a simple angled hole there. I have a backing. I can now create like I said, I'm gonna have to build this. I'm gonna have to build this top here much larger, but create a sketch and I can work on this existing face now that I've created. And I'm gonna create a circle right in the middle. Zoom in, I mouse over that divide line and get close to where I think the middle is. The triangle constraint tool comes up and tells me that is the center. And you see the circle I'm creating is on the plane of that diagonal. Cool. This circle is actually 100 millimeters wide. So that's going to cause some interesting problems because it's much too large, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Finish sketch. I'm going to extrude. And I'm going to have to go through and select all of these little parts because it's doing that. It is, because I built that based on that face, it's still going to extrude the proper direction on that diagonal. And it needs to be 10.5. So we'll make it actually 10.5. I want to go the other direction. So 10.5. There we go. Hit OK. And obviously this causes some problems here because I made this too large, but I also have this neat little like just hook here, or this little feature here, meaning that it's not like it actually has to fit exactly completely. It still will nest right into that line. I would be able to drop this charging puck down into there and it'll still feed on, or it'll still catch on those two little tines. So frankly, that would still be a pretty easy way to build this. It's going to cause a problem because now if I didn't have that charging puck in there and I dropped a phone in, that's going to drop on the bottom, but minor details, something you can figure out later. So from here, I can, now that I have the major features that I want into this, I can keep playing with it. I can add in, I can now round out some stuff. So let's try to round out with fillet. Let's try to get some of these faces figured out because this all is just a mess right now. Do one that starts to round that out. So just go around and actually like clean up your form. Don't just print a brick. unless you actually want to model like a, little cinder brick. That would actually be pretty funny. I can add chamfers all around to this. Let's do one. Let's see where that starts to add chamfers. All right, I don't want that actually to be on all sides there. I just want it on the actual edges. Let's see here. Let's use the drag tool. Like a big fancy tool here. All right. So this is where you can just start adding some of those features and that sort. So ideally, and I will model a stand-in for this puck, so it's not just a weird blank space, but those are some of the ways you can just start adding basic features into this. Remember, if you need, you can most certainly, or if your features mess with you, you can most certainly grab, gets in the way, you can most certainly slide your history slider back before features. Then you could add things like, sure, let's add like a spot for pens or something, or I could, whatever, make that 65, great. Extrude, nope, I just want, stop it. Just that circle. Again, I can extrude downward, and again, I can use the extend type to object base, and I'll use a -5 millimeter, just so again, it stays the same depth inside there. Now, when I use the fast forward, go back and reapply stuff, and this is the problem, like, yeah, all right, my chamfer was way too big. I need to now go back, adjust that chamfer. And we'll make that more like 8. Smaller. 5. Yay. So it's easy to be able to work with stuff like that if going back and forth through the history slider. All right. Let's save this. I can now unhide that phone case. That's going to plop it in place for me. Reactivate the whole project. And now I have at least a much better idea of what's actually going to happen here. So I can incorporate elements like this. This is now basically a desk mounted thing. And more or less that would do it. I'm going to model next class. I'm going to model a amplifier stand. So something that I would have like a little bell housing attached to, or when you drop it in, it'd have a little bell housing. So rather than having to use a speaker, it can just use the built-in speakers and amplify that. So that's pretty much what I want to model, and we'll work out what you want to do.